Hey everyone, welcome to episode 7 of the Carlson Cards podcast, where we interview longtime collectors to learn more about their strategies and ways we can apply them to growing our collection moving forward. If you love cards, if you love talking about cards, if you love learning about cards, then you're going to really enjoy this episode. My guest today is very well known around the hobby. He's the co-creator of Card Ladder and one of the original hobby YouTube content creators that really spent time interviewing collectors just like I'm doing right now. Josh is a very passionate and avid collector of LeBron James, Penny Hardaway, and a few other players. This interview and his cards really speak for themselves, so let's kick it right over to the interview. Welcome, everyone, to episode 7 of the Carlson Cards podcast. We are joined today by Josh Johnson, otherwise known as Cardboard Chronicles. I'm very excited for this episode, having followed Josh for a long time and, really listened to his journey, throughout the at least past 3 years that I've been in the hobby. So very excited to learn from him, ask about his LeBron collection, state of the hobby, what's he excited about, that sort of thing. So first off, Josh, how are you doing? And obviously very, very grateful you decided to join. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Hey, Austin. Thanks for having me on the show. I always love joining podcasts and talking hobby. Like, worst case scenario, we just talk about cards for an hour. I could never get tired of that. But no, I am excited about your podcast starting up, episode 7. It's off to a great start. Love seeing your cards. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And one thing I wanted to jump right into, if you don't mind, you said cards. I think we got to share cards right away. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk a lot of this podcast with you about your cards. You linked me your Flickr just to be able to grab, some of the images and your collection. I mean, first off, very well organized, very high grade, very methodical behind what you're picking up. So kind of a question I had right away here. Just a reminder, on YouTube, there's a visual for, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Nobody can see this, but we can describe the cards. But I grabbed a snip of your finest gold run. I think this is 04 to 07. And I enjoy collecting football for the same kind of time frame where you got the finest runs, like you guys, Larry Fitzgerald, obviously, you're a fan of those kind of guys.
Yeah.
So what led you to kind of going for the run here? And are you deliberate about the fact of like, hey, I want to get every card from, LeBron's gold refractors, like that sort of thing? Is that kind of what you targeted or just turned out that way?
Yeah. No, I started taking interest in the gold refractors pretty early on, and I had started by just kind of grabbing random ones. And the 2005 finest, which you could see on the video, I bought that one raw a long time ago. That was one of my earlier ones, and then I graded it with PSA at 10, and it was a pop 1 at the time. So that was kind of got me into the PSA 10 itch. Like I just at that point I was like I want a lot of these to be PSA 10 if possible. And I've graded the 2006 finest as a PSA 10 myself, and a couple others. I think a couple of Bowmans I've graded PSA 10s, but mostly I'm buying them myself. The gold refractors, yeah. I mean, I've always liked the gold shiny cards. I'm not like a big Panini guy, so I've kind of just stuck to the older ones, the finest Topps Chrome and Bowman. I do have all of the finest except the XRC, which I'm not like a fan of that card. Anyways, it's like he's wearing the suit. I know a lot of people like it. I just don't. So I don't have that one, but I have all the other finest ones, and I have all the Topps Chrome Golds, and I'm 2 away on Bowman. But I just sort of started going after them all like in the last few months because I'm so close. Like I just keep picking them up, and then I've upgraded grades over time. Like I had a 2007 finest as a PSA 9, and then a 10 came up for auction. So I like sold the 9 once I won the auction. So I am looking to get the highest grade possible. It's impossible to get all 10s because there's no 10 for like 2006 Chrome or 2006 Bowman. I think finest has a PSA 10 for every year, but I don't have the rookie in a PSA 10. So, I don't know if it's possible for me to get all 10s, but that would be nice.
Where do you, following that train of thought, where do you gauge the sense of like, okay, it's a card. These are all at a 50, or do they vary by year? I should ask that first.
They vary by year. Like on the screen here, the 2004 finest is at a 15.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
2005 is at a 39. Most of them, I'd say 50. If you had to guess, most of them are 50. 2007 finest is at a 25. Most of the Chromes are at a 50. 2005 Chrome 1952 style is at a 25. So it's kind of random, but
Mhm.
mostly 50 if you weren't sure.
Okay, yeah, I should ask that right away, like I said, because I know football's like pretty consistently 50
Hmm.
or 49, and there's like I think 125, although '02. But what I was going to ask on this though, you mentioned kind of going after the high grade. Do you feel like that's for you kind of I'll put it this way, like a luxury now that you've had the cards, you have the nines. Now your kind of next adventure is to go after the tens. Is that kind of why that is? Or I guess where I'm going with this is right, like someone like myself or other collectors listening, sometimes it's hard to justify the 3 or 4x price difference. I don't know what it would be for 9 to 10
Hmm.
on these. How do you battle that? Like, are you looking at the card? If you see a minor flaw, are you saying no, I don't want the 10 because subjectivity of grading? Like, kind of
Yeah.
a broad question, but just would love to hear your mindset kind of on the grading factor, especially considering these cards are so rare by themselves.
Yeah. Well, like with the Prism stuff, like Prism Gold at a 10, I don't think you can be as picky about getting all PSA 10, but with the stuff being at a 25 and 50, it kind of gives me that extra layer of, like the hunt and the rarity. It is pretty difficult to get all these, like you said, without the grading is pretty, it would be pretty hard to do. Even if you just did like all BGS A5s and stuff, it would be hard to do. But the PSA 10, I've been doing this for so long that I'm just sort of like inventing new ways to like recollect these cards. You know what I mean? So the PSA 10 chase has just kind of like been born out of that. I am kind of a grading snob, to be honest with you. Like I probably would more lean into the grade than like, oh, this card looks nicer as a 9 than a 10. I know that that's like great, buy the card, not the grade. I get that. But for me, like now that I have all these PSA cards, in the registry and stuff, I am kind of a snob about trying to get tens.
I was gonna ask if some part of that ties to the registry. I've had a lot of fun with that too, and it always does. It's funny. I'm the same way. It bothers me when I have like
Yeah.
five tens in a row, and then there's that one nine, and then I have two more ten. For a run like this. So the registry does play a part in it for you then.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen your Instagram. You do it similar to me where you've got like the front and back scans. Like it's very organized. You try to get PSA 10s if you can. Like I'm kind of in that same boat as you. So I think you're kind of catching on to, why I'm doing it. It's probably the same reason for yourself.
Yeah, and I think I got to give Nat credit for that. I think I loved the way he did it, and obviously yourself
I
as
do it
well.
now.
But Nat was the one who like I would see his um his what do you call it? Like here's 8 cards of this player, and then it's like okay, every single one's insane. They're scanned just like that. So that was always where I got it from. So speaking of that, I was going to ask. We talked a little bit before we started just about the fact that you obviously, for those who aren't aware, you are the co-creator of Card Ladder, which I use for tracking. I love to share and shout you guys out because truly not a sponsor, just I love the product. Um, what's that whole thing been like being from somebody who started this from nothing? You saw a niche in the hobby, and then now you're. I guess I'll put it this way: you're kicking it with the big shots here, basically at this point, right? Like, what's that like? And we'll obviously get to the exquisite after this, but I just want to ask that while you kind of brought it up there.
Sure. Well, appreciate you using Carlot. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the hobby now for like 7 years, and I've been doing, website development, tech stuff, professionally for about 12 or 13 years now. So really, my background is in web development, building websites, apps, like all that kind of stuff. And I've been pretty successful at it at several companies. Worked for Amazon, GoDaddy, Garmin watches. Like I've worked for some big companies. I am fairly skilled in that area. So I kind of had that plus cards. Like there wasn't really a lot of tech development going on in the card space. So like I kind of had an advantage, I guess, in that world. So being able to build an app wasn't too difficult. It's in my wheelhouse. I was already doing it. And then I was lucky enough to be working for a company where they were really big on help letting people that work there like kind of grow on the side and like work on their own projects and stuff. So I was pretty upfront with them. Like, hey, I'm doing this card thing. I'm building this app with a friend. I think it might go somewhere. And they were very helpful in like reducing my hours and kind of letting me do both at the same time. And then shifted over to it full time once it made sense for me and Chris and Christina. So as far as like with the big wigs, I think was that your
It was kind
phrasing?
of, I was just joking, but like truly, I mean, it's interesting. I work in, tech, I guess you'd call it as well, automotive industry, engineering background. But I just find it interesting as someone who's like has an interest in entrepreneurship, like you start something from scratch. and you were legitimate before then, but like you're heavily
Yeah.
legitimized when you're bought by PSA. Like, what's that thing like? What's that kind of thing like being, again, coming from kind of humble beginnings of developing the app?
Yeah. Um, well, I just like building stuff. I mean, as an engineer, I like cards. I like building stuff. So like the project itself kind of started just from, I wanted to build a website around what we were doing, and it was kind of fun. And then it just kind of grew over time. And then the subscription, revenue made sense where it lined up with potentially being acquired. I was friends with Nat beforehand. So like he kind of already was like watching what was going on. So I mean, honestly, like the Cardboard Chronicles, what kind of what you're doing here is what sort of like evolves you into knowing more people in the space, networking, and meeting some of the people that work at these companies. So, once we launched Card Ladder, it was kind of already, people already knew me from the interviews. People knew Chris from his show. We've been doing crossover for a little while. So, you know, I think working on something for a really long time, like we have 7 years building up to this, I think is the way to do it. You got to really really be involved in it. You got to spend a lot of hours on it. You gotta have a lot of skill, and that's kind of what this like pandemic boom thing created, like these mini bubbles of entrepreneurs that thought they could just come in and get rich within a month's time of work. And my perspective was it takes a lot longer to build up to something like that, and you got to be more patient, and you got to practice for a really long time to kind of get to that point. So I think that's all in there.
So you're not a factor, or you're not a supporter of the get rich quick mentality. I take it. That's good. Very good.
No, I mean, if you're in tech, you know this
Can't
just
be.
as well as I do. There's a lot of like politics and middle management and
Mhm.
like stuff kind of moving slow. So I've seen a lot of that for a long time already, and I know, the people that do the hard work are the ones that end up getting rewarded and kind of moving up over time. So I know already, you can't just like in the regular employment working world of 10 years ago, pre-entrepreneur crypto boom, like you had to actually work hard. So I come from like you have to work really hard and you have to build things and like prove it.
You have to provide something that's actually useful to somebody.
Right.
Maybe that's it too.
Yeah. I think that's a good starting point. Build something that people actually want. And if they don't want it, then you kind of fail at it and move on and go to the next thing.
Yeah, learn something. So when it comes to success, I'll kick back over to your photo here. Obviously, I've again followed you for a while. Really enjoyed seeing your growth, and one that really stuck out to me. And I have pictures of some different LeBron exquisite cards here. Um, I think what really I caught on to, not that you weren't savvy, but I knew right away when you talked about during that boom how everything didn't make sense, right? I think you sold an exquisite at a time point where the money just, it made sense to sell it for you. And then now it seems like you're going back and acquiring a ton of these. I saw you post today, even that you're looking for more exquisite cards. So I want to just touch on maybe that mindset. If you could share a little bit, like what was that journey like? Did you always plan to collect cool cards? There'd be a big boom, you unload, like you
Mhm.
sell one, now you go back and buy a ton way cheaper. Like obviously dream scenario, there's no way to know that was going to happen, but what's kind of the mindset there that maybe the rest of us can learn from if this maybe happens again, or just through our collecting in the future?
Yeah. No, I would love to take credit for being some like investing card genius that, saw this coming 7 years ago and spent all of his money. But if I was that smart, I would have bought. There was a 2003 Ultimate LeBron logo man, one of one rookie that sold when I first joined the hobby for like 300 grand. And I remember looking at the auction and being like, sell your house and buy it. But I didn't. So like if I had actual savvy, I would have bought that one. No, I mean, really, it just came from like I enjoyed the cards. I had a income from my job, and I sort of just had money that I would save first into my boring financial accounts, and then I would have leftovers, and I would buy cards. And that was pretty much how I did it for 4 to 5 years. And so I kind of already had a comfortable space at what I was willing to pay for certain cards, just
Hmm.
based on that history. So I haven't really changed that since. As sure, like with the boom of the market, selling some of those cards, I had more money to be able to buy other things. So like it's changed over time. Sort of like the range of values I'm willing to take on. But it really just kind of depends on where the market is at the time. So like when the market went way, way up, I was more selling stuff because I could like sell stuff that I wasn't, super excited about, knowing I could get back later. And then when the prices came down, now it's kind of back in that range that I'm comfortable with again. That's why you see me buying. It has nothing really to do with like I have no idea if this stuff's gonna
Hmm.
keep going down over the next year. It could recover and go back up. I have no idea. I just know like how much money I make with my daily job, and then I use that a percentage of that to buy sports cards, and I feel like that sort of like basic mathematical logic has gotten away from people in terms of like you're trying to like time the market, you're trying to like be a savvy investor. I get all that, but really for me, it more is just a hobby. So like I'm actually just like collecting these cards for fun, and it's not my day job. So yeah,
No, I just gotta say, I love that. I was hoping that was going to be your response because to me that seemed like the only logical way to go about this, right? Like you said, you kind of work your day job, whatever we're all earning. You invest for retirement, so your family's got a future. The extra you come in here, you find your gauge, and then what do you enjoy collecting? And I'd imagine, to your point, like you said, you treat it like a hobby. Me too. That's been way more fun when I just actually started collecting. I mean, my God, what a surprise! But what I was going to ask there too, you mentioned, kind of getting a gauge for what you're willing to pay for stuff. And,
mhm,
as I'm kind of, let's say, again, maybe a couple years ago, buying very common cards, I had no idea what I was doing. Now starting to acquire ones that, might only sell once a year, that sort of thing. You can't rely on, quote unquote comps all the time. I hate that word sometimes.
yep.
Um, how did you kind of gather and gauge, quote unquote, again, what you're willing to pay for things? Are you looking off of prior sales? Is it just, hey, I'm comfortable owning a LeBron auto for this price, right? It's kind of a vague question, but I'm just curious if you could touch on that part of it a little more.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, the good answer would be like, I founded Card Ladder, and it's literally my job to know the prices of cards. But as you stated, like this is still a collectible space, and the prices of things are still, not like stocks. It's not like this is exactly what it costs. It's not like a sticker on a car at a dealership. It still kind of fluctuates pretty quickly, and I would say it's more for me just like a just experience of knowing what I've paid in the past and kind of like where I see the overall market for these specific cards moving. And because I'm so focused on just these two categories of like LeBron, well, I guess it's three, like LeBron Gold, LeBron Exquisite, and Hardaway 90s. And like,
Mhm.
I do some other things just to stay active, but those are kind of my three primary focuses. Because it's so narrow, I just like kind of basically memorize like what all that stuff is worth. Like I see something and I could just kind of rattle off what I think it's worth at any given time. And I've, paid attention to what sells, that I own, or like similar cards that I own. I see what they sell for. So I kind of just know based on experience where it's moving, and not just like today, but historically. I know like where they peaked at the boom, and a lot of these like peaked so high, which is looking back on like the 2021 to 2022 height is like bananas. I can't believe I wasn't buying stuff. A lot of that. I mean, there's a couple I bought, overpriced like everybody, but a lot of them was like, man, I would never have paid 50 grand for some of these. It's like it's crazy to look back on it. But I would just say like experience, knowing, kind of memorizing these markets. I'm sure it's the same for you, Austin, with like specific cards. You just kind of see it and know at this point.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with you there, especially like I said, I'm probably obviously much more football focused, but because I've had to hunt down a 2002 finest gold Peyton Manning, I have a very good idea what I would pay for a Randy Moss, right? Like it's just, and I guess a couple questions back, and the one I just asked you, like you said, it's not really a skill, it's not an exact science, but I would say, at least my perspective and listening to you here, the skill is having the gut.
Yeah,
What to gauge stuff with. And so if you're at a national and there's no reception, people are going to be running like running into each other with their heads cut off. And Josh, you're over here like
yeah.
you see a LeBron you want, what you're willing to pay, which I think is really incredible. And obviously, hopefully a good takeaway for everyone listening. Like just learn the market you're interested in. I guess that's what I would take away from kind of what you just said.
I think if I'm looking through my cards, I basically have like everything here. Um, like every single one of these I look at, they're all like pretty rare, especially with the combo of the grade. And it would be really, really hard to go back and just like go on eBay and find all these. I don't think any of these are just sitting on eBay right now. So when something does come up, that I own, like looking back on the stories, most of them are like there's no comps. Uh, I know how often I see that card, and if this was the first time I've seen it in a couple years, I just sort of like pay what the seller wants. Maybe like finagle a few percentage points to just because that's how like humans are with deal making and stuff. Like we all love that part of it. But for the most part, it's like there's one today. I won't say what it is because I finished another set today, but it came up on Facebook. Someone messaged me. He's like, "This is what I'm looking for." I haven't seen one of these cards sell, and I think there's only like two public sales in Card Ladder. And he set a price, and I was like a little bit lower, and made the deal. So like a
Wow.
lot of it is you just gotta kind of overpay for some of these because you just don't see it. Like Pop 2 PSA 10 gold refractor. Like the seller could just be like, "Yeah, just go get the other one." Oh wait, you can't because you don't even know where it is. So I just buy it.
The funny thing about that too, and I actually, I really like what you're saying here, is because, these auctions are a great luxury. You kind of assume the card's going to end at what yourself and at least another person are interested in. But I think
Mhm.
maybe what I've learned the last couple of years, that isn't always the case, right? I saw Peyton 2012 Prism Gold end on PWC 2 weeks ago. Now it's on eBay for two and a half price. Like, it's not, to me, that's not a person who probably wants to own the card, which is interesting. But it sounds like the way you've been able to acquire a lot of these has been a way where, you meet someone who is a collector. You are the collector, the end user. You're buying it at a price you're happy with. I just love the idea of that. I guess is what I'm
I
what
just
I'm saying.
It's funny that like when you and I describe it in words and voice, it sounds so simple. It's like you're just kind
Yeah.
of buying. I see the price, it makes sense, and I want it, and I buy it. So it's kind of Chris and I always have this like caveman joke. It's like see card, one card buy card thing, and I'm crazy, but I just don't hear any content talking about that very simple
Hmm.
use case, and maybe that's just a byproduct of sort of people coming in during the boom and it kind of being more financially driven. But I do know a lot of collectors that kind of operate the same way, and they're probably just not as like vocal with content, and they're not as active on Instagram and stuff. That's just they just kind of buy it, tuck it away into their PC, and kind of move on. And then so that's why I love supporting guys like yourself that come in and want to like talk about it, make content around it, because this is to me this is still like the way you operate in this space that's the most successful. And that's kind of the crazy part is like, we say collect what you like, we say be a collector, and I think you're more financially successful that way anyways. I think you'd be a better investor if you did it that way. So it's kind of a two part bit of advice.
Oh, for sure. I appreciate that. And two things kind of off what you just said. I think you hinted at too. Problem is face to face or one on one. Like if you and I transact, there's no money being made by anyone else in that. I think maybe that's part of it. And then, it's not sexy. I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
The other thing I was, I guess, wondering about as you were chatting here, you and I obviously overlap a little bit on, Instagram and stuff, but we have very different, I would say, silos that we collect in. I've thankfully met, I would say, a core group of maybe 30 or 40 collectors that I'd say feel the same way in that mindset that you just kind of shared. Do you have that
Mhm.
with like the LeBron thing? Like, have you been able to curate that and have these, group of guys that, or gals, of course, too, that, very easy to work with, who to go to, that kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, anytime a card comes up, I'll usually ping like two or three people just to, have a sounding board on what price should be. And have you seen this card recently, or is this, am I right in stumbling upon something that hasn't sold in a really long time, or are we sort of thinking the same thing? So yeah, for sure, you have that small group, and it's evolved over the years. Like some people have left and come back, and some people have joined during the boom when they were excited and kind of wanted to jump in, and then have left. So it obviously moves around a bit, but um, you definitely need that group, and that's kind of what got me into the content space. And I'll let you speak for yourself, and if that's what got you in content, was like I just feel like there was a lot of people thinking the same thing and kind of operating in a similar fashion, and we all kind of spoke about it, but there wasn't like anywhere where I could listen to people talk about it on video. So that's kind of the factor in starting the show and listening to other people's stories about why they collect, and it's usually pretty similar to my reason.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Actually, like my thing was, there's a handful, including you guys, Brad, obviously other podcasts too, but of folks where I don't feel like I'm being sold something. It's
Mm,
just, oh my gosh, wow, what a surprise! You can just talk about cards, and there doesn't need to be anyone else involved. Like, I can't believe that's not more common, but it isn't. So that's part of why I started doing these more long, form, interviews, kind of again, and obviously inspired by you, definitely to some extent, which is cool. And then originally YouTube as well. It was just like I can't even watch PSA reveals without feeling like this person's trying to sell me their 30 crap cards. Like, I don't
yeah.
know, no offense. There's some great guys on here. Elite Co 3 does a good job, but yeah,
Especially when your
that's
stuff
kind
is
of
so specific. Like you're looking for something so specific, and if someone's messaging you like, "Hey, do you want to buy this random Peyton Manning?" and you're like, "Not really. I mean, it's not even close to my wheelhouse. It's technically the same player, but that's about it, you know?"
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's funny. Everyone thinks just because no harm to anybody. It's just everyone's not knowledgeable as much in certain areas, but it's like, to you too, I bet you get people who come up to you and assume because you like Topps Chrome, Topps Finest, oh, he must want a Monopoly Prism
Yeah.
Gold from this year,
Right.
And I get that quite a bit too. I'm sure you are in the same boat there.
Yeah, the Panini Gold Prism run is very tempting, and I've been like semi pulled into it a few times, but then I remember that the 2012 exists, and I'm like, God, I can't start collecting these knowing that the 2012 is like, I won't say impossible, but I know where like 6 of the 10 are, and they're not going anywhere, and the other 4 are with, probably with people that want to sell it for $1 million. So I have to like kind of stop before I start, you know.
Yeah, well, so one thing I've gathered from you already, again, you and I had never talked before this, but I've already gathered you're kind of like me where you're I don't want to call you OCD. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
improper to say that, but like
no, that's the
I
right term. Yeah,
okay, the right word. Okay. Like I'm the same way. If I know I can't get a certain card in the run, I will never even try it. There's no point. If I get
yeah,
9 of 10, it's gonna bother me that 10th isn't sitting there.
yeah. I only need 2 more Bowman golds to have Topps Chrome Finest and Bowman, and both of them are out of 50. I know, and one of them's the rookie. Like that card sells all the time, so it's just a matter of like swallowing my pain and just buying it at the price that it is. And then the 2006, I think, is the other one I need, and there's no PSA 10s, so like that's why I don't have one, because I'm like, do I really want to buy a BGS 9 and just sort of like have that, or do I settle? I don't know. So
Yeah. You have the luxury of being patient with which is good.
exactly. Whereas 2012, it's like 2012 Prism Gold. It's like just give up. There's no way. And I don't know if you've done any of the Prism stuff, but like
Mm-mm.
out of 10 is a lot harder to get than out of 50. Let me put it that way.
I've told myself many times now, okay, I'm just going to buy the 2013 Select Gold and just the 2012 exists, but I'm probably not going to get that for a while. That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking. But so quick question too, while we have, again, these exquisites have been teasing everyone who's going to watch this for how long here. Um, I was wondering if you could give me a high level of, let's put it this way. I'm familiar with the set. I'm sure a lot of folks are very iconic. One of the best, I would assume, of game used patches and autographs that have ever been created. My question to you is, as someone who's now going after these, what drives rarity and desirability in these sets? So I get like finest, right? It's going to be numbering and the design of the card. I get that, right? That's going to be your variation. The patches and autos just seems like there's so much differences here. So just
Yeah.
love to understand what kind of drives, again, the desirability of this set specifically, and between years, between cards, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, if you go back to 2003 when Exquisite first came out, it was a pretty big deal at the time. It was the first sort of like premier expensive box that was presented in a way that was like, this is going to be just a few cards in a pack. It was very different from the traditional 10 cards in a pack odds. Like, it was a pretty big shift, and the price was really, really high. I think they came out at $500 retail, which was a lot back then, because you could buy Topps Chrome and Metal Universe for $50 or whatever. So that was kind of crazy. So starting from that point, like Exquisite really has like a really strong community of people that are latching on to that 2003, start of it. And obviously like launching off of LeBron's rookie year, him being an exclusive with Upper Deck, Michael Jordan being an exclusive with Upper Deck. It has sort of these like little things that make it really, really sought after. And it was always, when I started collecting, I was more into the gold refractors and the Penny Hardaway stuff. But every show that I was at, all the people that were in sort of that space of high-end basketball always kept talking to me about Exquisite. Like you just kept seeing it. Like the LeBron RPA was always like front and center. Some of these rare like limited logos were always spoken in really high regards. So you kind of couldn't help but notice it. And so getting back to your question, I think you start to pick up on the quality of the patch and the quality of the autograph as a big differentiator. The grade is much less important on those cards than the gold refractors because they're a lot harder to keep in pristine condition. They're very thick cards. They came out of the box like with white corners and white edges just because they're so thick and like softer, right? They're harder to keep pristine, and like you have to get the thicker one touches, and you have to get like specific grading slabs. It's just like you're just gonna have to deal with like condition being bad. So you just kind of focus on the patches and the autographs. And I'm like super picky about that. So like with the gold refractors, I'm picky on getting PSA 10s. With the patches and the autos, if it's not like near perfect autograph, I just don't even care because there's a ton of them that I've seen over the years where the autograph is just completely like almost off the card. It's like faded so bad. It's been out in the light and that shows for years, and it's like, gross. And
Can
then
I
like
ask
the
a quick
one,
question on
yeah,
that,
sure,
Josh? Sorry not to
sure.
interrupt. Just quick question on that. So you mentioned there's faded autographs in existence, and you're obviously sounds like again cut from the same cloth, specific and picky about what we go after. Um, do people like let's say uneducated buyers in this market do they value that as well on the autos? I shouldn't say uneducated, right? Maybe they don't care, but do
Mhm.
they value it as well? Like, are these auctions on cards that don't have a great auto? Do they end significantly lower? Or do people just look at the grade and don't really care?
The autographs definitely end higher, but I've seen, especially during this like 2-year window of the boom, I was seeing the higher grades be the primary factor on those cards, and that wasn't my experience. So that spoke to me about inexperience of just like people coming into the space having a lot of money to spend on the hobby to try to capitalize on the growth, and they would just like, okay, just buy the highest grade, and that's what they've been told. Buy the highest grade Mickey Mantle you can. It probably applies to everything, so just buy the PSA. I would see like a PSA 10 exquisite LeBron with just a terrible autograph go for higher than a perfect autograph and a better patch. That didn't make any sense to me, just based on like my knowledge and experience of what people in the community actually want, which is like the patches and the autographs.
Perfect. I appreciate that. That's exactly what I was wondering about because, again, lack of experience with this, but that makes sense to me. Could you touch on a little bit? Just one more thing I was curious on between years, right? So I get to '03 is going to be the biggest. I would assume '04 probably also good because it's second year of it. I don't know if that matters at all. But beyond that, what's the difference between the different years? Is there certain sets that are more iconic or more
Mhm.
desired?
Yep. I have a few examples, but like 2003 for sure. Like the rookie year stuff. People obviously really like that. The RPAs. I'm holding the 2003 limited logos LeBron,
That's
but
insane.
also also people really like 2009, and I have a couple here.
Okay.
So this is 2009 Noble nameplates and 2009 number pieces LeBron. And the reason people like these is they are redesigns of 2003, but they kind of like I would say they improved the design on them quite a bit. Like they got more crisp photos, a little bit more hollow foil incorporated, nicer patches. Like they just sort of like doubled down on the original designs and improved upon them. So people really are drawn towards 2009, I think, for that reason. And they're like lower serial prints because Upper Deck was losing the license and they didn't have as many patches. So they just kind of like scrambled together. And like this one's out of 18, which is like completely random. Like makes no sense. There's like a limited logos out of 16. It makes no sense. But the subsets, I would say the most popular are probably limited logos, which is the picture you had up was all like my limited logos ones, and then number pieces is pretty popular. Noble nameplates. There's another one that most people don't like, and I would agree. It's scripted swatches. Those have the autographs on the actual jersey or on
Mhm.
the patch, so they're not on the card. So it kind of makes them a little bit less appealing. It's like you're having to like autograph on top of a piece of cloth instead of the card. It's a little bit wonky, but still a very popular set. And yeah, you're right. 2003, wildly more popular. It's the first year. It's LeBron's rookie year. All these reasons. But I kind of like them all. Like I'm just kind of going based off of like which ones I think look the coolest, and that's kind
Mhm.
of what drives my gold refractor run. So it's kind of the same thing here. There's a couple. I made a list of every exquisite patch out of LeBron that exists, including all the serial numbers, and added them all up. So I have like a compass to kind of go off of, and there's probably like 10 of them that I just like would never care to own. Whereas the gold refractors, I like most of them. So I just like went to finish it all. But the exquisite would be, first of all, very challenging to finish. But I'm not sure that I would care to get all of them because a few of them are like, do I want to spend 20 grand on something that's ugly to me?
Yeah, you can go buy a car for that.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thanks so much again. Super insightful and stuff that I know nothing about, but now I do. So that's very good. I'll shift over then. The new image I'll pull up here is your Mount Rushmore you gave me of the top 4 cards in your collection. This looks like it could be put on a mountain and be a piece of art. So great, great work there. So I was wondering if you again could just touch on the cards and be sure to describe them if somebody can't see the visual, but wants to understand
sure.
what we're talking about. So what's that first card there?
Yeah, I mean, you just pulling up this image is like giving me all the feels or whatever.
Is that a tear, Josh? Do you have a tear going down your cheek? For everyone
Yeah, it's
listening,
like
just so you know, Josh has a tear going down his cheek right now.
I just love cards so much, and just like seeing these four together is like, damn, these are sick. The first one is 97 mil universe, PMG green Penny Hardaway. I started collecting Penny, 6, 7 years ago. So he's always been a favorite of mine. He was my favorite player growing up as a kid. For kids that grew up in the '90s, they know why. He was kind of seen as like the next Jordan. He was very highly marketed. He had a lot of commercials and shoes. So like his career obviously didn't turn out great, but there's a lot of nostalgia around him as a player. So he's always been my favorite from that era. And that card is kind of seen as like, the peak of player collecting for '90s guys. So like when I first started collecting Penny, I had a lot of his nice stuff. It obviously took a while, but like over time, I was seen as like a pretty decent Penny collector, but I didn't have the green. And a lot of the conversations would be like, "Yeah, you're not really a Penny collector until you get the green PMG," and it's like, God, you hate it, but it's kind of right. So when I finally got that one, it's a pretty big deal, in that space and that world to be able to get that card, and it's numbered 6 out of 100, which is my favorite number because it's LeBron and Penny's Olympic jersey numbers, and now it's LeBron's like primary jersey number. But I've always had that connection with those two guys, and LeBron actually speaks about Penny being like one of his favorite players as a kid too. So number 6 is important to me. 6 out of 100, that's my best Penny Hardaway card for sure.
So it sounds like there can only be 10 true Penny Hardaway collectors in the world, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's what always kind of bugged me about it is like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't really have a choice in this matter. If no one's selling it, then I'm kind of stuck being a non-collector as you're calling me. So, but it's kind of a fun little like inside joke with all the '90s guys.
No, that's amazing. So second card I'm seeing here looks like a very, very, very nice LeBron. What do we got here?
Yeah, so that's the 2003 Topps Chrome Gold Refractor rookie, and that one's actually serial numbered 1 out of 50.
Wow.
And I'm guessing a lot of people know about that story. I don't know if you know about it, Austin, but
Yeah, I don't actually, which is funny. I'd say I'm like I've stepped into your life without you knowing, like for a
what?
month at a time
Kidding.
for the last couple of years.
Right. Uh, I bought this from a couple that lives in Texas, and they bought the card out of a $80 box from Goodwill.
What?
So they acquired like an auction on Goodwill's website for $80, and on the top of the picture was just like a box, and at the top was like some '03 like Beckett magazines and like random '03 stuff. So they just kind of took a shot, opened it up, and found a box at the bottom that was labeled good cards, and they showed it to me. I have an interview if you go back and like look, it's on my channel. But
I'll watch that. What I'll get the link from you after this. Just I'll link that below this for anyone who's listening and wants to listen to this as well.
yep. And so this was in 2019 that they pulled it out of this box. They freaked out. They filmed themselves. They were all excited. And I arranged with them over several Zooms, like, hey, I'll fly out to you guys and I'd like to purchase this from you. And it ended up being like a trade and cash deal. But I bought that in 2019, and the one at 50, which is kind of like the icing on top. It's pretty nice. The centering isn't perfect, but that's why it's a 8. But you kind of just at that range of value, you kind of just get what you want, get what you get.
So, I'm imagining this couple is like, I'm gonna say like middle-aged, retired. What are you trading them? You trading them like sewing machines and used
No, no,
cars?
no,
Like,
no.
what are you trading them?
No, they were a younger couple.
Okay.
And they've been like flipping and buying cards on eBay for a little while.
Okay, so okay, that makes sense. So you trade them some cards then,
The
I take
people
it.
that they bought it from clearly didn't know what they had because they sent it to Goodwill. I think what happened was the person who had this collection passed away, and their family saw the box and just thought like, "Oh, this is just junk," you know. So like they put it in Goodwill, and that's kind of how that. So the people that own it before them, unfortunately, didn't know what they had.
Wow. And that's like the opposite story. Usually everyone, it seems like, thinks they have a gold mine, and then you get the tote of cards and it's like 90s crap. Like I'm sure that's everyone listening who's into cards and your family knows you're into cards. That's like the
Yeah.
typical story
Every
I've
time they
heard.
say to me, I don't know if you do the same, but I like roll my eyes like, "Yep, I'm sure you do, buddy. Your garage is probably stocked full of 52 mantle and you know, all the best stuff, I'm sure." And they're always like, when they see the funniest one is like they see the PMG green penny and they're like, "Oh my god, I had that card. It's probably still in my garage." And they like, it's always the base card, like they just recognize the pattern. They don't know. I was like, "Was it green?" Like you would know. It's pretty green. It's like radioactive green. They're like, "No, yeah, I'm pretty sure." It's like, no, it's probably the base.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I always, like I said, you have family reached out to you. Hey, I had this collection as a kid. And it's like you try your best. Like, I'm so sorry. You probably have $20 right here. I'm so sorry. But anyways, so the third card here, again, we touched on the exquisite. I didn't show this image until now, but I think you just picked it up. So you did show this one a second ago.
I bought this. I got this in a trade like 3 years ago. So I had a PMG championship Michael Jordan that I bought at National 2019. Pretty random. Like, what's this LeBron guy doing with like a Jordan PMG? This is silly. And that's kind of how it was. Like, I bought it knowing that it was going to be trade bait eventually. So I traded that for this card. This is and looking back, I probably got clobbered on the value. If you look at PMG Championship, MJ stuff has greatly outpaced LeBron Exquisite, but that's fine. This is a 2009 Exquisite number pieces LeBron at 23. And the special thing about this one is it's serial numbered 1 of 23. And on the 1 of 23 and the 23 of 23, and I think 2 of 23, he did like a number 23 inscription. So most
Oh,
of them autographs that you'll see on this don't have the number, like the pound symbol and the 23 on the right. They just have the rest of it. And then the patches are pretty insane. So this is like a special copy out of that run. And the card, I still don't think has sold publicly even during all this boom.
wow.
And I said I was a big stickler on like the autographs. And this one has like an 8 autograph grade, which you're like, blasphemy. How could you do this if you're so picky? If you look at it, it's still like very bright and pretty insane of an autograph. So I kind of just like, settled for the 2 small streaks that were on LeBron's signature that day.
I was gonna ask too, how do you store these? You mentioned, I think if they're in the light, it fades it. Is that right? So how do you
Light.
properly store these?
They are in the bank. They're not
So you just keep
in
them away
sunlight
from
at all.
light in general. That's kind of the trick with it.
Yes, of course. I was joking with Chris on crossover. Uh, if I have a new mail day, I have it out. Like if it's an autograph, it'll be out on my table, and I like to look at it, for like a couple weeks until I send it off into the vault. But whenever I walk away from it, like if I'm holding it like this, I set it
Mhm.
downward on the table.
Oh, okay. See, yeah, because I saw it on the desk, so that's why I thought of that question because you pulled it out. I was like, "What is he doing with it right there?" Okay, so it's upside down.
Yep. And that's just like it's probably silly. Like, what's 1 week in the light gonna do? But I don't know. I don't want to find out, so I just turn it over.
Ask those Kobe refractors. I saw that recently too. There's like 110 that's like, oh no, BGS 10 that's perfect. The other one's not, or something. I don't know. But the
I think those
green.
ones are all gonna eventually green. That's my
Mhm.
theory. Like, I don't even think it's a matter of like people have them in the light more than others. I think they just sort of like it's a ticking time bomb. But in autographs, you could probably make the same claim that like in 100 years, all these autographs are gonna fade. But I haven't seen it as much as like as prevalent as that Topps Chrome. So
Which is kind of absurd. We don't have to get into it, but like, what the hell is the science that causes this ink? Because of light, the ink comes out. Like, I don't get the physics there, but that's
there was
okay.
like a pretty decent interview with, I think it was like the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
And I don't know anything about baseball, so I'm not going to give details and make myself look stupid. But they were talking about like the certain types of materials that you keep the memorabilia and the cards inside of to preserve it for like long years. And they had like taken the research done from people that stored like mummy artifacts
Oh, wow.
from like ancient Egypt to keep them preserved. So there's like some science to like the preservation of some of these things.
Oh, okay. So, well, at least someone's out there doing that work for us. You don't
I
you don't
don't
have to
think
start
that
a lab.
I don't think that same logic has been put into these grading slabs. Like it's better than nothing, but I don't think it's like the correct type of plastic in a lot of cases.
Well, good conversation with Nat next time you see him. Maybe we can look into
Those
that.
guys are always PSA is always innovating on protection. Like they recently added an inner sleeve that you really can't even see. Uh, I don't think any of these four have it but you could like very faintly see it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there is now an inner sleeve on PSA slabs.
So it must be a certain tier level, right? Like they don't do that for the bulk service. I'm a poor guy, Josh. I'm not grading at
No, I
$250
think
a
it's
pop.
for
No, I'm
all. I
kidding.
think it's for all
Okay,
cards. I think
I'll
it's
have to
like
take a look
starting
then.
with like 7 serial numbers. I think they all have it. And like if
Oh,
you
okay.
crack one open, you'll be like, "Wow, there was a sleeve in there. I couldn't even see it because it's very very thin and transparent."
So it isn't like Beckett where they're in a sleeve is what. Oh, okay.
No, it's
Okay,
like
good.
laid on the top. It's like literally like
Oh, okay.
placed on top of the card, and you can tell because it's got little like square cutouts in the corners. Like you could see where they sort of like fit it into the slab.
Oh, okay. I'll take a look next time I get an order back. Sweet. So your fourth card here, again, I another one I could have included on the prior slide, but I was waiting for this. So what kind of card do we have here?
This is my favorite card. This is the 2003 finest gold refractor Lebron rookie, and these are numbered to 25 in a PSA 9 with an old PSA flip. Like I'm kind of OCD. I am OCD. I want all like the slabs to be the same, but that one is like so old, and the slab itself is like heavier.
Do you have it with you? I can turn this
Yeah,
off if you want to share it. Oh,
I have it with me. Oops. It is an older slab that's like very clearly a different type of plastic and everything. So I just kind of like enjoy this one being different. And it took me so long to get one of these. Like it's such a pain. I found a couple and then like kept trying to buy from the person. And then eventually like I just had to like swallow my pride and like way overpay. So I finally got one because I wanted like a nice grade. Nat has a PSA 10 and I've seen it and I hate him for it. But the 9 was like um, I was very excited to get the 9 because I'd seen like an 8.5 and like a raw on eBay. There was a raw on eBay for years that I think ended up grading an 8 or an 8.5. So to get the 9, I was pretty excited about that. It's in good condition.
so question two here off of that. So the Topps Chrome Gold you just said was out of 50, the finest out of 25. Price point wise, are they similar or the Topps Chrome significantly higher?
No, they're similar because of that. Like the Chrome is more popular, but because the finest is at a 25, they sort of offset.
Okay. That's interesting. I feel like football, we haven't, I guess I'm trying to think of an example, but like I know 2008 Topps Chrome football, there's a gold that's out of 199. There's a red
Hmm.
that's out of 25. The golds I think sell for more, which is just kind of, I don't know. I think crazy, but it might be a part of the fact that it's a gold card too. But that's good that the LeBron market respects finest, I guess is maybe where I'm going with this.
They do. I'd say they're a decent amount cheaper than Topps Chrome. Like for if you all other things being equal, same serial, same grade, like the Topps Chrome would outsell it pretty significantly, I think. But I don't know. I think this finest looks a little bit nicer, so maybe there's some of that. And they don't sell nearly as often as the Topps Chrome, and collectors are trying to get them. I don't know all these factors.
All
Are
right,
you
Josh.
going for all the Peyton Manning finest and Topps Chrome Gold too?
So yeah, I just finished finest. Well, unofficially, there's like a year where it's like a jersey card. It's not numbered. It's a jersey. I don't have a single jersey card in my collection. So OCD is like, I mean,
Yep.
it's like a huge struggle. Do I buy the one patch card or do I fully complete my collection? I don't know what to do. But yeah, I finished finest. The O2 was tricky. The 99 was very hard for some reason. That's out of 100, but just completed that. And then Topps Chrome just do not pop up. I mean, there's certain years that it seems like for some reason they don't. Like 2010, I think recently one popped up, but they go really, really high, some of these. So I just kind of am being patient. And they're out of
Mhm.
50. So it's not like you're looking at a card that's like out of 25 or whatever. But yeah, it's funny though now, like off of this conversation too. It's like I finished a lot of what I wanted for Peyton. So like outside of the 2012 gold, the rookie, really expensive stuff. I kind of just been upgrading grades like you're doing. You kind of
Yeah.
invent ways to make it fun for yourself. Like I'll buy a raw copy. If I have a 9, I'll buy a raw copy again, try and grade it. Okay, if I don't get a 10, I'll just sell the 9, and get some money back and, hopefully make a little bit too. But yeah, it's funny how that goes.
So is Peyton your primary, or do you have other players that you're collecting too?
So yeah, it's Peyton. Pretty much was the like first guy I dove really hard. Then it was Brady as well, and I got a bunch of like combos where I have both of the same cards in the same set. Like then I've done this all mostly grading myself because football is really nice. Nobody ever graded these, which is absurd.
Yep.
So like
Yep.
Peyton, I'm buying like tops pristine golds, and then I'm hitting tens, and they're like die cuts. And I'm like I can't even believe these are out there. And then it's funny. That's the difference between Peyton and Brady, but that's my main two. And then very recently, I've been diving into like, I think kind of what you did with Todd Gurley, where it's like, I'll just grab these Hall of Fame guys that I loved watching. Not Gurley isn't Hall of Fame, but you know what I mean? These like
Yeah.
Hall of Fame or fantasy football legends that I really liked. And like just pick out sets that I really like 2013 Gold or like Randy Moss. I just got a 98 Bowman's Best Atomic. So I was really excited about that. Still got to find a Peyton, but they're like crazy expensive. But
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm going now. I told Brett when I talked with him, it's like I go through like chaos order. Right now is definitely, I mean, we're in like chaos mode, but order will be coming soon, I
So are
think. We'll
you going to
figure it out.
be sorry to like go to my natural tendency and ask questions. That's what I'm used to. But are you
Do it.
going for like a consolidation move at some point? Like if you get too much, are you like, this is annoying, I want like one sweet card, I'm going to sell 20?
So I think what I'm going to do, and this is kind of what I've done so far, I guess, and this aids that is I've like limited myself. Like Peyton and Brady, I grab whatever I want or have at least, and then these other players, I'm limiting myself to 10. So like if I get an 11th Randy Moss
Mm.
card, I have to sell one. And with that in mind, like you said, I probably have players now that I'm starting to collect that I'm going to end up consolidating. Bring to the national, and then there's a Brady that I really want or a Peyton or whatever, then maybe trade it up. Maybe I don't need Chris Johnson, even though I really like his cards right now. But I'm sure you're the same way where you kind of just pace it and ultimately just like trying to acquire cards that I feel like somebody really wants because I really want. So, I mean, I'd imagine there's others out there as well.
Yeah. No, I've done it the same way. If it doesn't, I have like a bunch of binder stuff. Like I like having a lot of cards and binders, but stuff
Hmm.
that's like graded, I try to keep that limited to like 50 to 60 cards or less. And if I start going over that because I'm going too hard on a player, I usually like start to look at it and go, God, I have too many. I got to sell like 20 of these and buy one. I just always go through that phase over and over. I've done it probably like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, I'm expecting that. Did you end up doing that with Gurley or do you still have all the
No,
miscellaneous
he's
slabs?
a different. He's just so effing cheap that like I don't even. I just crack him out of the slabs and like put him in top loaders. Like I have a whole see this black box up here.
Yeah,
That's like all Todd Gurley top holder like 1-on-1s and stuff
that's awesome.
because it's
Best
just
part is
so
he
dirt cheap.
goes just on the shelf. You can hang out with them when you want to as well.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just
I
like
have something for you too before we're done. Do you I know, sorry, I was gonna say the way I store my cards, you said binders. There's like PSA binder pages you can buy on eBay. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have my binders are only for raw.
Mm.
I've seen that stuff. I like having my because it's like basically if I can't carry all my PSA slabs, I have too many. That's like one of my
I see what you mean.
if you know what I mean. That's my gauge. So if I can't like get them all in my arms and carry them out of the bank or out of the vault, then like I've got to step back and try something different.
Or go buy some cargo pants or something.
Yeah, or just like get bigger arms. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I need to work
Yeah.
out more.
No, there you go. So Josh, I have a couple like fast five, if you don't mind. I'll ask you five quick questions. These are, what the hobby wants to know, which means I've said this before, just my wife and I came up with some questions. So
That's
I
funny.
hope you like them. So number one, finest or tops chrome. And I lied, actually. Some of these came from Instagram. Somebody mentioned this one a bit ago and I didn't get a chance. I haven't had a good guest to ask this to, but you're a good guest to ask this to. So finest or tops chrome.
I'm gonna say finest, and this isn't like a finest is undervalued take. This is just like in a vacuum. I think they look better overall.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, which is interesting because what other take is there? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like if they look better, why aren't they worth the same? But
I'm not
I
sure.
yeah,
It's the brand stuff. Like
yeah,
even though finest is actually older, which finest came out before Topps Chrome, so I would think the branding is better. But like the brand of Topps Chrome is kind of more similar to Prism, and it's like why is Prism better? I don't know because the brand. That's it's just the reason.
yeah, interesting. So another one here, this one might be a little tricky. So if you could only collect game used patches or on card autographs, no like cards with both, what are you taking if you could only collect one of those? And again, and I know it's super hard, but
Autographs. I just really like the contrast of like the bright blue autograph on the paper stock. And the
okay.
patches are cool, but I gotta have the autograph.
Is there some part of it where you like feel more connected to the player with the auto versus a patch, or that's pretty
Yeah,
equal to you?
the patches, like I feel like it's a lot easier for them to like mass produce patch cards, and I feel like I see them more often, and especially now that LeBron doesn't have any licensed autograph cards, like in my mind, like the autograph is always a lot harder to get.
Good to know. Good intel. So third one here. What card can myself and the viewers listening help you find? Is there any out there that you've been looking for forever? And I can't imagine we're going to find someone on here who's going to have the card that you want, but maybe, who knows?
Sure. My number one is the 1997 uh, Gem Master Anthony Hardaway.
One of one, right?
It's like, yeah. Have you seen? It's like I have the regular PMG with me, but it's like a PMG Gem Master version of. It's gonna be like the last one I pull out. This one.
Doesn't Spinatron have one of these for somebody really
I think
big?
he has Kobe,
Okay.
and I don't know that the Jordan like realistically exists with anyone we know. And I've
Mhm.
seen a fake of the penny,
Okay.
but it's this card and it looks insane. If you pull up, if you just search Gem Masters, you'll see like there's been a few sales. I think the Barkley sold kind of recently, and I think Pippen sold semi recently for a lot. So that would be my number one, is that card for penny. LeBron, I don't know. 2004 exquisite emblems of endorsements out of 10. One just sold on Golden and I lost. So I'm very, like, it's fresh of mind. I'm really pissed. I was so mad.
So with that in mind, I'll come up with another one here. What do you do when you're pissed? You might lose an auction. What's your stress reliever? What are you doing?
I immediately message everyone else that I know has a copy and offer them more than I lost the auction for.
That's a way to make yourself feel better.
And they usually say no because they're like, well, it just sold for this. So I'm like, clear in my mind, I'm like, if I offer more, they're just going to say yes. Like, why wouldn't you? And they're always like, no, because it's usually a card that is like, if they sold it to me, they're not getting it back because there's just not enough of them to go around.
No, it totally makes sense. And then final question. So this one again has been like a favorite. I've had a lot of people ask this one and answer it. So if you could only collect 1 year of cards across
Mhm.
all sports, what year would that be? And all sets, right? So if you pick, 2003, you get all those cards. But is there any other sets that come to mind? And it can be '03 if it is.
Yeah, it's probably 03. Just because, like, I think 97 is probably a more exciting answer. But I would rather collect LeBron than Hardaway.
Makes sense. Well, and Hardaway is in '03 too, right? But not the same like level of cards.
Yeah, I
But
think he's on like the Heat in 03.
no, that doesn't work for you.
And I only collect Penny Hardaway pinstripe jerseys, to be
Okay.
specific. And they switched away from the pinstripe jerseys in '99, and that's when his career also kind of started going downhill. And then he like went to the Suns and then like the Heat and the Knicks, and it was like gross. I don't want any of these, so I just stick to like the nostalgic pinstripe year, which basically ends up meaning like 97, 98 is all I have.
Perfect. And then I guess one thing that just came to mind when you said that, I'll ask you before we hop off here. What's your take on like post playing years cards? Like if LeBron retires, are you gonna be a player if they make cool stuff with these new companies and all that? Like, I'm just
Mm.
curious because I was adamantly stuck against it for Peyton and then Brady if they start making more of these other players. But I was just curious what your take is on it, just from a
In
collectible
general,
standpoint.
yeah, in general, I'm against it with like some rare exceptions. Like I think the Michael Jordan exquisite stuff is an exception. If I were to collect MJ, I would probably collect the exquisite because like that set is just, exquisite is just so like special in my mind that, and Jordan is kind of like the face of it because he has the exclusive with Upper Deck. Like that kind of is the exception to the rule. But LeBron, dude, I hope he doesn't sign another exclusive. I don't want more autographs. I don't even own a LeBron card post 2009. Like I don't want more supply coming into the market. I want to keep it limited to what I know, which is very like get off my lawn take, but that's fine.
No, I'm glad you think the same. I'm the same way. That's why, you look at some of these modern players and the price of their autographs. I don't know. It makes me rub my head. I don't know what to say, but
Are you in the Drake and Brett camp of Peyton Manning's undervalued?
um, it's tough to say, right?
Like a
Like,
play in like a playful way. You don't have to like it's not like a
don't give a
serious.
full take on it. I would say no, actually. I'm probably against what they would say. I would say I think he's pretty spot on. Like
Okay.
compared to other players, right? If I can buy Randy Moss for a fourth of him or Drew Brees for an eighth or a fifth in a lot of these sets, I think he's not. But that's if you look the other way, if you compare to Brady, then yeah, maybe you'd say he's undervalued. But I don't know. I would say no, but that might be a hot take.
He was just like so good. It's just because he didn't win enough rings, I guess. But I was looking at Instagram. He has like 500,000 followers, which is a lot, but not really because
No,
Brady has like 20 million and LeBron has like 150 million. And I thought Manning was more popular than that with, the Manning cast and like his commercials. Maybe I'm not understanding why he doesn't have more of a following.
I think he gets like the fans of the sport, like people who really watched it. But I think for like the outside people or people who come in like a decade later, I feel like maybe he's a little, undervalued. Or like I think maybe it's this way too. People remember too vividly, I think, him being in 2015 and can't throw the football very well. I think there's part of that stuck in their head. I really think so. Like Brady, we never saw that and we're never going to really. But
Yeah.
um, like I don't know. I think there's something to that. Same with Drew Brees, right? Like you remember that last year, he was like he
Yeah.
was playing, but like they could only throw short passes. Nothing against Brees.
Yeah.
Sorry, Drake. But I just mean like I think that sticks in people's head. You remember the end and the beginning. That's like a
Yeah.
psychological thing. You always do. So
The
I feel like
beginning
that's
was
part of
like stuff we've never seen from Manning. Like his statistics were just so insane. Maybe it's because he doesn't have a liquor. All these guys always have like these
it.
liquor
Yeah.
sponsorships. Like that's what sends him over the edge. Maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I think there's something like that too. He's just too much of a he's a family man. Like I like that because of it, but like, a lot of
Yeah.
people I think he's not in the news because of it and stuff. So he's
He's like
not he's not
Jokic.
sponsored
He's
by
just
FTX and then,
yes.
they go out of business and get sued. Like he's not in that.
Yeah, that makes sense. LeBron is definitely in like the liquor crypto garbage that I'm like, I wish he didn't, but whatever.
Yeah. And then like it's funny though, and then MJ's maybe more like Peyton where you don't hear much about him at this point. Like he's just kind of living his life, I would assume, right? I
Yeah.
don't see too much about him except when he's in a, amazing new documentary or movie or whatever, but
He's so good on like TV though, man. He's probably my favorite uh you know athlete that's like transitioned into the entertainment business that I find to actually be pretty good.
Michael Jordan.
No, Manning. I think he's
Oh,
hilarious.
sorry. Okay, I took that wrong. Yeah, no, I
No,
agree
no,
with you. I think it's surprising. I don't think I expected it. I don't think most people expected it probably.
yeah, he's very funny.
But all right, man, out of respect for your time, I just really appreciate you joining. And again, like I said, I guess I just in general, I appreciate you joining because you don't have to do this, but the fact that you chose to, I really appreciate it. I hope people enjoy this episode. And for everyone listening, don't forget, sorry, to follow Josh on Instagram. And tune into the crossover every Friday night on Instagram and then also on podcast apps the following day. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for having me, man. I would do this every day if you invited me. So don't make it seem like I'm super busy and important. I'm not. I'm sitting around looking at cards just like the rest of you guys.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. And hopefully we meet up at the National too.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.